Hey internet friends. So I attempted to do a video yesterday and then realized that I had it on the photo mode and that I had been talking for however long and there was no video being taken. So this is attempt number 2. This is the West Side Garden. I did most of my videos were on this side last year, so this is sort of a comparison. This is the little shade garden. This is mostly decoratives. In fact, it's all decoratives. It's just all beauty. So right here we have some hibiscus on the corners here. These are black magic elephant ears, this one and that one. There is a rose right here, a fennel, which I don't even remember planting, but I probably did. I've got some squatty sunflowers down here, and then these are impatiens that are that volunteer themselves. They come back every year. They reseed prolifically and come back every year. And then these sunflowers here actually planted themselves from the bird feeders. So there's just a nice little backdrop of sunflowers there, which is really cool. And then this here is cold hardy hibiscus. And what that means is that it can stay in the ground all year long and it comes back. The tropical hibiscus that grows here, which is what these are, you either have to give them protection over the winter or they die in the winter and you have to just get new ones. So this is just a little shade garden that we have here. Oh, and then I've got pitiful little hostas attempting to be in the shade and survive here. They just don't thrive, I don't think. Some people say they can do them here, but I've never had any luck. But here is coastal Mississippi, so I am all the way down, almost as far south as you can get in the United States, except for Florida. And then we're going to enter into the actual garden. Now, this year I had to put fencing on the whole thing because the dogs kept getting in there, and just getting in there wasn't as much of my concern, except for that all the neighbors have dogs, and our dogs and their dogs are tearing the fences up. And so in order to preserve the fences, I added another fence. So that's what's going on here. So right on this first fence row, I've got cucumber growing up here, and there's one in that corner as well. And then I've got some yard long beans, which is in the southern bean family, going on that fence row as well. We're gonna slowly pan around here, and then we're gonna go all the way to what I call the hot corner. That's the hot corner. So this corner here just gets a lot of heat in the winter time or in the summertime. Lots of stuff can grow here that really can take a lot of heat. So this right here is the mostly relative to the hibiscus that I planted in here, and then I've got some flowers, and then down here are cinnamon basil and holy basil, an herb that I use to make tea, and so that'll be where I get those from. And they all have this really pretty purple flower. Now this is the cinnamon basil that has that purple flower, but this is the holy basil's purple flower, so they're pretty closely related. This here is Mexican sunflower, which will be right outside of the bathroom window, so when we're in the bathroom we can look out and see the beauty here. And then I've got some other flowers here. I don't know what these are yet until they bloom. They were in a wildflower package, so they're just about ready to open up, and I'm really excited to see what they are. This little bed right here is primarily moringa and sunflowers. So my moringa, 1, 2, let's see if I can do this, 3, 4. I had 5 moringa in here last year. This is not a place where moringa is perennial, and the moringa actually came back this year from the root. So I was really excited about that. It's not exactly perennial because the tree doesn't stay alive, but it did come back from its root, which is awesome. I did heavily mulch that, and so that's part of why it was able to survive and thrive like that. Right back here, I stuck in a tomato and a Mexican sunflower, and then around here, this is Mexican sunflower. This is what Mexican sunflower looks like when it blooms. Now this entire plant will be just absolutely covered in these blooms. You can see the one here, but there's also a bud there, there's a bud there, and every single one of these, like where it shoots out of what I call the armpit, will have another bud or 2 or 3. And so it's just gonna be absolutely beautiful. Now this bed is primarily the moringa and sweet potato. Last year I had some sweet potato in here, but this year it really took off and all the sweet potatoes came back. I suspected it was perennial here, but I did get confirmation. Sweet potato is perennial here. It does die back for the winter and then come back in the summer. So this entire bed, now this thing right here, I don't know what that is. If anybody can identify that, it looks, it's some kind of flower, and it has a really pretty yellow flower in the fall. So I've left it. If it gets too obnoxious, I've trimmed it back a little bit actually. So, but then underneath of that is sweet potato. Now that's harder to see because they're not doing a whole lot of exciting now. But this is sweet potato. This here is sweet potato, and it's all in here. And then I went ahead and over here, I actually planted or put a tote with purple sweet potato with purple meat in here as well. And I'm allowing that to vine. Now the way sweet potatoes work is they vine, and then those vines shoot down roots, and then the roots become tubers. And then those tubers will come back if not harvested. So they'll come back and create more plant. So I've done that in here in the hopes to get both orange and purple sweet potatoes in this whole bed. And this sort of turned this whole sweet potato, or this whole corner, into a sweet potato hot stuff garden. And so right here, I also am growing amaranth this year, and I've got a bunch of it. These are young amaranths so far. This purple one is probably my favorite of all of them that I planted. And I have two that say purple, so I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to differentiate that. But it's the least bug pressure, and it is just the most gorgeous, beautiful, I don't know, what do you call this? I don't know if this is a flower exactly, but it's also really, really deep purple. Got a couple sunflowers in here. And then let's back up here a little bit. This whole back fence row is only 2 squash plants. And I do have a couple of holes in that fence, and I'm allowing it to go into the front yard. Tee-hee-hee. This is my effort to create the front yard into a food forest as well. We're just gonna get sneaky about it for the next few years and get my husband on board. Tee-hee-hee. In the corners here, I have the cranberry hibiscus. So I grew a lot of that last year. There's one back here too. It's a little harder to see. I grew a lot of that last year and really enjoyed it, and it makes a wonderful tea. And the leaves are what you harvest to make the tea with, and the leaves taste like cranberry. If we go up over this hibiscus here, you can also see I've got okra tucked in here. I think there's 5 or 6 okra plants. There's one. And the okra it's a really good companion with sweet potatoes. So that is what that is. So let's get a little closer up to this moringa so you can see it. Moringa is kind of a gangly, scraggly plant, but these leaves contain vitamins and minerals and amino acids that are just absolutely super, super healthy. It's ready to harvest some and make some, dry some out, and I need to do that because I need the moringa. I'm in bad shape this year after so much garden work. I also have another little cranberry hibiscus right here. There was a big hole in this sort of pit between where the roots came out of this poor old oak here, which you can see. Look at all that mushroom growth on it. Isn't that neat? So I put some potting soil in that hole and planted the cranberry hibiscus there. I don't know if that's going to be a good spot for it, but I'm anxious and excited to see how it looks and how it works. So coming back around over here, we have another little guild here. There are actually 4 fruit trees in this whole spot here. So this whole spot right here has got 4 fruit trees and a ton of annual stuff. So this is the Pakistani mulberry, which has the really long mulberries, like 3 inches long. And then down here we have the kumquat, which is a citrus, a little orange that you eat the whole orange. And then over here we have you can't see it very well with all the stuff, but right here is an Asian pear. And that is just going gangbusters, giving me new growth. It's really doing well. In this guild, I also have some sorghum planted. I have the cranberry or the hibiscus relative here. I have some herbs. This is Anise hyssop, some flowers. Oh, look, guys, we get to see the first hibiscus relative bloom. All right, dirty little secret. This is cotton. I don't want to tell people I'm growing cotton, but that's a cotton flower. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, so then we have some more cinnamon basil coming around here. We have a whole huge bed of mint, which is doing remarkably well for as hot in the season as we are already. I expect it to die off any day. Down in here, I have a planter pot, and that has got a patio cucumber growing. Now, I had a bunch of patio cucumbers, and I got to the point in this crazy year that we have where I could no longer find the steel tomato cages, which is how I was selling it. So I had a bunch of pots and I was putting these little tomato cages in it, and then I would take it to market that way, and I would sell it that way so that people could have their little patty cucumbers ready to go. They didn't have to do anything. Well, the steel cages have disappeared. I can't find them anywhere here. So I just decided, well, I'll put them in with the sunflowers and let them climb up the sunflowers. So it is actually hard to see which leaves are which, but it starts here and it comes up. So that's a cucumber leaf. That's a cucumber leaf. That's a cucumber leaf. And that is a sunflower leaf. I know it's really hard to tell in the video, but it's doing a really cool job. I've got one over here, and I've got one on that sunflower there, growing up that one. So these are my really tall sunflowers. I mean, that's 4 feet over my head, maybe even a little more than that. So that's just doing really well. And then this is the fig. This is the other of the 4 fruit trees that are in this guild. Now in this guild, I've got more of that gorgeous purple amaranth. So in this guild, I have created this cattle panel arch trellis. And in here, this is 2 Everglades tomato plants. And then I've got a sun gold there and a black cherry here. And the Everglades, this is 2 Everglades tomato plants, and looks like a jungle, which I knew would happen. I understood that was how they functioned, how they behaved, and I'm really enjoying it. It's just fun to watch grow, and it's also, I've gotten a few tomatoes off of it already. So the black cherry and the the Everglades have given me a little bit of fruit already. Yay! So there's my little jungle cattle panel trellis. So coming back around over here, that's the back side of the Asian pear. Come back over here, we have that fence that I started with the 2 cucumbers on it and the yard-long beans in here. And then right here we have the tree basil. So the tree basil is in the holy basil family, and it is right in here. And then we've got some lemon balm and a little volunteer zinnia and a whole bunch of volunteer marigolds. And this is more moringa and sunflowers. Now these are music box sunflowers. They're only supposed to be these little short squatty things that are supposed to get like 2 feet tall. And they're about 2.5, maybe 3 feet tall in my super duper soil. So, which brings me to another point. I do a lot of these garden tours, but I don't talk much about the soil in these garden tours. And one of the reasons that it is so voluptuous and crazy and full is because of how I deal with the soil. First of all, it's no-till. Second of all, there is a large amount of organic material. Every single plant that you see here, if the plant itself is not used, it will become the soil for next year. So I take and I chop and drop it at the end of the season, or as I go, if it gets too overwhelming, I chop and drop all that organic material. So a food forest system, one of the main components of a food forest system is that everything that is in the garden is not wasted. It then becomes part of the garden. So the sorghum, now I'm considering getting a sorghum press, which works very similar to a sugarcane press. In fact, I would get one that could do both because I grow sugarcane as well. I am considering getting that, and therefore the stalk would actually be used. But then I would squish the stalk and bring the chaff back out here and throw it in the garden, or feed it to the chickens, which would then make me dirt for the garden. So you see, it's a closed loop. Everything works together. There's no waste in this system at all because I have chickens. I'm considering getting rabbits, and the chickens and rabbits or any other animal that I would get would be part of that system and soil fertility and soil health. And you can see this is hard to see where the paths are, but this is just pure abundance back here. So coming around this side, we have watermelon and cantaloupe, which I have also tucked in some sorghum. We are in the hot part of the season here, but as the season gets even more hot, the sorghum is very heat tolerant. The Mexican sunflower is very heat tolerant. Okra is very heat tolerant. Oh, by the way, there is some okra in here. These plants are huge. This is okra here, and just a little row of okra here. I may have some horns on there, actually. They're getting pretty big. Oh, look at that. We got some baby horns. They're getting ready. Yay! But I plant the stuff that is incredibly heat tolerant in with the stuff that needs a little protection. And things that need protection include beans, squash, tomatoes, zucchinis, pretty much all the stuff that you think of as being garden plants down here really need shade protection. And I'm talking, they can maybe handle 4 hours of full sun, and then they get puny and they really struggle. So in here, I've got the row of Mexican sunflower and amaranth right here. And then tucked in here, kind of all over the place, are what these look like corn. That's actually sorghum. And the sorghum, gets pretty tall. That's sorghum right there. And I've got 2 varieties, a Dale sorghum and a Mennonite sorghum, both of which are a very, very tall, 7-8 foot tall sorghum plant, which is going to provide a lot of shade protection. And the cool thing about it is, as this plant sways in the wind, it lets those little dapples of sunlight into the things that are behind it. And so that's sort of the plan, is that it's not such a thick plant that it blocks all sun, but it's thick enough that it gives a little dapple. So here's more of the hibiscus relative, wink, wink. This hibiscus relative will produce green fibers in this side of the garden. The other side of the garden, hibiscus relative, will create brown fibers. And I do have some hibiscus relative that will create white fibers in the front yard, but they're in pots, large pots, but they're in pots so that I'm trying to create some distance between for cross-pollination, because I'd like to continue to have green and brown fibers that stay somewhat true. So this is just a little patch. It's got the cranberry or the hibiscus relative. It actually does have blueberries, but they're completely lost in here. Got a couple big sunflowers and then more sorghum in the back. I'm growing sorghum and amaranth this year because of the impending wheat shortages. Now, I can't eat wheat anyway, but because there's wheat shortages, I believe that all grains are going to go up. So we're going to start seeing people switch to sorghum and amaranth and millet and some of the alternatives. And because I'm gluten-free, I really depend on those alternatives. And if they go up in price or are difficult to find as well, then I'm going to really be in a pickle. So I decided to give my try at growing some of my own grains this year. My plan is mostly to grow the grains, just to have some grains sitting there on hand. Obviously, this is not enough grain to support a family for a year, but I want to practice. I want to learn how to grow my own grain. And then at some point, if this garden needs to really turn into serious food production, then I can really focus on the grain aspect of it, because I'll know how. I'll have done it, and I'll know what does well here, and I'll know how it behaves and what I need to do to care for it. So again, just watermelon, sorghum, Mexican sunflower. There are, this is the leftovers of the winter crop. This is either radish or turnip, and it is really close to seeding. So when these pop open, they're going to burst all over the place, and they will probably mostly sit dormant until the fall, late fall. It's too hot to germinate almost every brassica here now in southern Mississippi. So I've got still some left over. I also left a bunch of this weed that got this pretty purple flower on it because the bees were doing so great, and it wasn't going to hurt anything. It was just going to cover the soil, and the bees were really enjoying it. And I mean, I'm talking, the day I came in here to plant this garden, there was probably 500 bees, 6 or 7 different kinds, buzzing around these flowers. I'm like, okay, I'll leave some for you, no problem. It's a cooperative planting method. This here is another one of my new plants this year. This is I believe it's Granny Smith apple. Golden Delicious apple, which Stark Brothers said was Zone 9 compatible, so we'll see. This is a lemongrass over here. We've got some more moringa here. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but there are wasps flying around everywhere. So I'm gonna see if I can get in here without him getting mad at me. There are wasps everywhere, and one of the things that is fairly important to me is I don't use any pesticides except to kill fire ants. And that's on the ground, and wasps aren't that interested in the ground. Now, do I lose things to pests? Yes, I do. I lose lots of things to pests. If we come back over here, you can see lots and lots of bug pressure on my tomatoes. That's what the wasps are after. There's this little worm that does that. And the wasps are in here because they eat the larva of that little worm. If I sprayed pesticides, I would be damaging the worm. I'd get rid of the worm, but I'd also be damaging the wasps. And I want the wasps to do the work for me. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to sit and have to pesticide a bunch of the season. So that's why I love it when I see the wasps in here, because they are actually one of the best predators for the bad bugs. And they won't come if there's pesticides. They won't be able to come. They'll die. They'll die right along with the pest you're trying to get rid of. So coming back around here, we've got This is one of the original cattle panels I did. I think it's just been last year. And this is a grapevine right here. So this whole thing right here is grapevine. And that's only year 2 on the grapevines. And what's really exciting is that they're starting to bloom now. So this is what a grape flower looks like when it's blooming. This is what it looks like right before it blooms. And then it gets kind of weird and fuzzy looking right as it blooms. And I haven't gotten it's not fully in flavor yet. The smell of grape, this many grape, I don't know, flowers, is that what you call grape blooms, grape blossoms, is really, really amazing. So I'm really excited, hoping for that. Got more cucumbers here. This is the back side of that other cucumber bean wall. I'm just going to try to stand back here. I don't know if you can get the full effect of it. But these two things right here and right here are canna. They are just pretty. They do not produce any fruit or veg. I just really think they're gorgeous. They're very tropical looking. And these are a dark leafed canna. So even when the flower poops out, I'll still have the beautiful foliage. So I get this dark leaf canna with this bright red, beautiful thing kind of flanking the trellis here. So, and then I have some cucumbers. I have cucumbers on both sides of this trellis. So these are really big, those English long type cucumbers. And I've got a bunch of them, or a couple of them here. I really need to get out here and, oh my gosh, there's more cucumbers over there. I need to get out here and harvest cucumbers this morning, right after this video. So coming back through the trellis, we have, I don't know if you can see this. I'm gonna try to lift up. I don't know how much you're gonna get of this, but so I've got squash here, and then there's squash over there. This entire patch, so from here all the way to as far back there as you can see, way back there, is 6 squash plants. And this is why I like to grow squash. It just does, this is what it does. It just grows and grows and grows. I've got little beans tucked in here. This is the loquat tree. I added raspberries, which Stark Brothers says was good for zone 9. I'm not convinced. They're actually yellow raspberries. And then over here I've got bosenberry and loganberry. So we'll see. Those are the loganberry and the bosenberry are doing well. Raspberries is struggling. Back to the squash. So you can see back in there, and then it goes all the way over there. All these leaves right here, these are all squash leaves. And it just goes and goes and goes. 6 plants. This is 6 plants. And it is just producing tons of fruit. There's tons of little fruits down in here. Here's one of them. I did get a picture of several squashes on my Facebook page yesterday. Anyway, this is in front of the berries is more of the holy basil and cinnamon basil. Over here is more holy basil and cinnamon basil. But let's just come back here. Oh, I've missed the fig is here. All kinds of stuff. Elecampane is here. Okra, some sunflower, more amaranth back there. More sorghum. Oh my gosh, it just goes on and on. So let's come back here. This is one of the other cattle panels. And again, this is year 2 grapevine. And then this is a cucumber. And then there's a cucumber on the other side growing up as well. And there's large cucumbers over there too. This little spot right here had a grapefruit originally, and then I put a cherry in last year. Both of those have failed, so this year I put one of these red, it's got a name, banana. It's got a special name, but I don't remember what it is, but it's got the red tints. This will never produce a banana. It is just there for beauty. It's one of my favorite looking things living in the subtropics. I wanted to have more tropical stuff. So there it is. Mulberry. I said loquat. I figured it out the other day, and just species and not number. I've got over 40 perennial fruits and vegetables. Maybe I need to recount because I think I've got more than that. So under here, this is the grapevine. Wow, isn't that neat? All on a cattle panel, and it's doing so good. Now I do keep my cattle panels about 6 feet apart. This is a question I've gotten recently. They're about 6 feet apart. When I stand in the middle, I cannot quite touch both sides. And it's still very high. It's a good 1.5 feet above my head. And the reason for that is that I want to have a lot of space under there because I use the cattle panel to provide shade protection in the inside for my plants. So in here you can't see it because the squash have taken over, but I do have some beans in here, and on this side I've got the southern beans. So this provides just a little bit of shade protection for the more tender things. And actually southern beans are pretty tough. So So over here we've got tarragon and a lemon balm and some more beans. The last of the carrots from the winter season, which are doing great actually. I keep harvesting little bits at a time. More lemon balm. This is another squash. This is not one of the 6. This is just a tromboncino squash that I planted in here. And then there's another something that volunteered over there, and I don't know what that is yet. The back end of the squash. Oh, this is a fun story. So my lemons, this is a Meyer lemon. You can see a little lemon here. See a little guy? My lemons were not doing very well. I only got maybe 4 or 5 lemons on here. And so I did a very, very late in the season fertilizing, like a citrus fertilizer, one that was meant for just citrus. And boom, all of a sudden, you see all these blooms on here? Oh my goodness gracious, look at all that. And I wish I had smell-o-vision and could tell you guys how it smells. But anyway, every one of these clusters will probably produce 1 or 2 lemons that make it. Probably 1 lemon that makes it, because they kind of select out. They put a bunch out, then they make a bunch of little baby lemons, and then they select out for what the plant can handle. And their plant cannot handle this many lemons, so it's just neat. So the little bit of fertilizer, and it was late. I didn't do it at the right time. It was late, but it's still early enough in the season. It's May that we'll get lemons. We'll get lemons in December on this tree. So yeah, citrus are long season. So back here we have another fig and our beautiful palm there, which needs to be trimmed. And this is the back end of those 6 squashes. There's some sunflowers in there as well, and just all kinds of crazy. Coming back around this other side, this is the part I mow. I made myself a little seating area back here to just sit in the shade and enjoy my beauty. This is one of my new favorites this year. This is an Aloha Alakasia, might be Colocasia, elephant ear. I get Alakasia and Colocasia mixed up. Basically, one has leaves that stick straight up and one has leaves that bend down, and I never remember which one it is. But isn't that gorgeous? Purpley leaf with green vein. Oh, doesn't get any better. This is the grapefruit, and this whole section back here is a little bit weedy. There's lots of stuff in here that is intentional, but this is a little bit, we're letting the organic material build up. We're just going to call it that. But look at my grapefruits. They just did so good this year. I've probably got 15 grapefruits on this little tree. And again, this is the grapefruit I planted under a water oak. So one of my Florida people that I follow said to plant your citrus under oak trees, and that they're going to do a lot better that way here in my zone. And boy, were they right. This plant is just on fire. It's just doing so good. So coming back down here, we're on the back end of the carrots. We're on the back end of the berries. There's the banana again, coming back here. And that is pretty much it, folks. This is a morning garden tour, which I wanted to do because the lighting is really pretty. And it's not so hot that I'm going to die out here giving you a tour. That would not be good. So anyway, this is what I got going on this year. I hope you all are doing well. I hope you're getting ready for the crazy that's coming next, because it just seems to be a constant barrage of crazy. Love y'all. Happy gardening.